No, no buzz. It's just Bees Book Club. Continuing with the read through of Stephen King in publication order, we are at Roadwork by Stephen King. Writing is Richard Bachman. The third Bachman book of the five, I think, that were published up until much later. This is Stephen King's attempt at a piece of literary fiction. It is bottom three. It's got to be bottom three of the of the books I've read so far. As I recall, I think I said something along the lines of Firestarter was like a really just competent thing. It was just like a thing that existed and it was like page turning and whatever. Like that's this, except for with all of the charm that was like barely there in Firestarter, just sucked out. We got George Barton Dawes, living a middle class life. He's a big old peon to fucking suburbia in the beginning. His kid died when he was like 12. His wife's sort of like drifting away, and he's about to lose his house because there's the 783, I think, something like 784 highway is coming through his town. His house is being eminent domained along with his laundry, which he's a manager of. He's been there for 20 years or whatever. He's a 40-year-old man, and it's just the most boring thing I've read in a really long time. It is an attempt at literary fiction, like very clearly. It's very clearly like here is like here is the novel driven by the interiority of an individual that sort of like is confronted with the reality of the world in some way or another, right? The reality of walnut-sized brain cancer that takes a son too young, the reality of eminent domain, of governmental reorganization of one's life, the reality of grief and depression. These other things are all like buzzing around in the background, and they're all sort of filtered through the interiority of this one man, this protagonist, and it's just so badly done because it's just done in the way that like King gives life to other characters of his, right? The big thing with George Barton Dawes is that he has this sort of interior dialogue. He has this person named Fred and this person named George that sort of snip back and forth at each other, and you learn eventually that like George was Charlie's name for George, but he like because he usually goes by Bart, and then Fred was Dawes' name for his son Charlie, as like a sort of play on something or other that I've forgotten about because it's all excruciatingly boring. They had this back and forth with their kids, and then the kid dies, and then he sort of internalizes this, and so this is like this is the cleft, right? The reason I bring this up is because this is the cleft that like drives everything in this novel. The novel itself is formed as this literary thing, except for the fact that it's like all it's written like November 11th, 1973 through whatever. I don't remember when the actual first bit is. Let's see, November 20th, 1973. I was close. Through like January 20th, 74. You know, pitch rises slowly, and each sort of chapter break is just another date. And it's like, so that's kind of more of a genre-y thing than a literary-y thing, even though literary is a genre, etc., etc. Whatever. This is just for bees. The book, everything about the content of the novel is an attempt to be, again, like I said, this sort of like man against the world, this sort of boiling down of social issues, this understanding of the deep interiority of an individual to access the world, and then on the other hand, it's just a Stephen King character doing Stephen King character shit, and it's like it never synthesizes in any meaningful way. It just drags the novel down. Everything is just like this rote, like what happens next? I guess he takes mescaline, and I guess he fucks a 21-year-old. Like I guess he goes and firebombs some construction equipment, and it's like a genuinely boring scene, which is like, you what? How did you do that, Stephen King? This is like my favorite shit. This is my favorite shit. You firebombs and construction equipment. That's great. But like because it's shot through with this completely clashing sense of King character and literary fiction character that just like never do anything, and you know how you can tell that it never does anything, because for like the fucking second half of the book Fred disappears and there's nothing made of that, and there doesn't need to be anything made of that, but there's nothing to make of that. Like it's just like he occasionally is like, oh, I wonder where Fred is, and then Fred doesn't respond. He's like, wow, that's rude of you, Fred. And it's like, who? The, it disappeared because it had nothing to do with the novel that wanted to be written, or that like you were attempting to write. It was just part of the novel that you started writing, and then it had to go away because it didn't make any fucking sense for this novel. And then it just keeps going, and then Fred sort of comes back, I guess, at the end a little bit, like it's just a little bit, but not really, like not in an interesting way. Just kind of like pops back in. Um, he does a bunch of like there's a bunch of just Stephen King shit in here. I don't know. I know it's a Bachman book, so like theoretically one would not have known that this is just Stephen King shit, but like it is. And yeah, I don't know. I can't think of a more boring time I've had with a Stephen King book, or many books, honestly, in general, than I had with this one. Despite the fact that it has a dude firebombing construction equipment. Again, man blows up his house. Okay, I'm gonna talk about the end really quick because I was about to just say like, fuck it, I'm done. Dawes does this whole thing. He goes through this whole thing where he like meets up with this local mobster named Magliore, and there's like a stock character, whatever. Magliore goes from like skeptical of him, thinking like, oh, you're a cop, to like the turning point is Dawes firebombing the thing, and Magliore getting wind of it and being like, oh shit, this guy's like, this fruitcake is for real. And they go back and forth in this sort of like paternal way, where Magliore is like, I think you're nuts, but I think like you're committed to this thing. Like back and forth. Eventually, Magliore gets him a bunch of melanine, some sort of plastic explosive that has like 60 times the power of dynamite. And at that point, I was like, oh, there's something interesting happening here. Like, okay, like, because at the beginning of the novel, Dawes has bought a fucking Dirty Harry gun and some rifle that allegedly can like splay the guts of big game like 60 feet or whatever. When he shoots it at one point, a cop says like, "Oh my god, he's got a howitzer in there." Like it's that kind of thing. I assume this is a fake gun. I don't really know. I don't really care because this book doesn't make me interested in it at all. But so he does this firebomb run. He gets like the trust of Magliore. Dawes is the he here. He gets all these plastic explosives, and I was like, oh shit! Like he's gonna do he's gonna do a terrorism. He's gonna like blow up this overpass, and like he's gone from being like, oh shit, I like caused $100,000 worth of damage with like Molotov cocktails. I now have access to real firepower. That $100,000 only put him back a week, maybe a month at most. I can do some real damage. And then he's like, well, I'm gonna rig up my house to explode, and I'm gonna get the press to come by and watch. And this has it has the same fucking ending as Firestarter does, in terms of like the political imaginary ending up at like, well, if you just get the story out, maybe everyone will understand, but actually they won't. Instead of fucking Charlie, was that the character's name? I think just Charlie in no, wait. No, Charlie is the kid in this book. Is Charlie also the kid in Firestarter? Am I conflating them? Did he just use Charlie as both of them? I swear to God it's Charlie in both of them, but I'm probably wrong. Weird. That got me confused. Charlie from Firestarter, or whatever her name is, You know, like goes up the fucking building and reveals like the truth can come out to Rolling Stone. In this one, it's like a reporter who wins a Pulitzer Prize for reporting on this dude who blew his house up. Um, he wins a Pulitzer because they produce a documentary about this dude who blew his house up, and they like reveal that the city like didn't actually even need to build the road. They were just going to lose federal funding uh, if they didn't build a certain amount of road. And it's like, I don't know, maybe, you know, I wasn't alive during the 70s, but like that's that's Pulitzer worthy. That's Pulitzer worthy, Stephen King, Mr. King. I don't, you know, and this is also the dead zone, right? It's the I mean, it actually works decently in the dead zone, so I know he could do this. Like, yeah, um, whatever. He's in his fucking feelings about the power of journalism, I guess, at this point, and the absolute lack of other options for engaging politically with the world, as far as I can tell. And this is one of the like, at least with the Rolling Stone thing in Firestarter, it was funny. Like, cause he does this whole like weird build up thing, and this one is just like, I want the press to come, and I'm gonna blow myself up, and then it's like epilogue, that man won a Pulitzer, and then everyone forgot about the reporting, except for they remembered the time they saw a suburban house blow up real good. It's like, yeah, fucking boring ass book. Thanks for not watching.